Hello, guys, and welcome back to the BritVSJapan podcast. This podcast is essentially just a place for me to ramble on about anything that I find interesting. Most of the content will probably be related to language learning and Japanese, as that is essentially what I do on YouTube. But, occasionally I will talk about a load of other stuff to do with all sorts of things to do with life, learning, a bunch of variety of different topics. However, today we are going to be talking about kanji in Japanese once again, and using mnemonics to memorize the kanji and get them stuck into your head. So if you don't know what mnemonics are, it's essentially just a very simple kind of brain trickery to try and cause your brain to get certain pieces of information stuck into long-term memory. There are a variety of different techniques you can use. There are things like mind palaces and all sorts of different things that, if you're interested in, then definitely have a look on Google. But yeah, today we are going to be answering a question from RS1999, who says, "Love your videos, dude. Quick question about mnemonics. Are there certain mnemonics that would be too easy? For instance, sometimes I use emojis for certain kanji, but I realize I might be memorizing the emoji as opposed to the kanji itself. Any tips on how to make good mnemonics would be appreciated." Okay, so it's been a long time since I've really used mnemonics for kanji. However, there are a few things I can definitely tell you that will hopefully help you. And thank you very much for the question, by the way. The first question submitted, so awesome. Really, really happy that the form worked. If you guys want to submit your questions too, then check out the form down in the description below. Of course, you can also just comment on the YouTube, and I'll probably see it. So yeah, basically what I would say is the main thing with mnemonics is creating the mnemonic yourself. It is obviously if you're using an emoji and you're just putting that on your flashcard, I'm assuming, and you're trying to relate that to the kanji. You're going to need to create a story behind that as well as just using the emoji, if that makes sense. So if, for example, there's an emoji that kind of looks like a kanji and it is kind of similar and you use that, it's not going to be as effective as, say, if you use the emoji as a hint to a story that you've made about the kanji, if that makes a bit more sense. I'm trying to think of an example, really. So, for example, the kanji for laugh or funny, which is it's usually used as a way of saying lol in Japanese. It kind of already looks like someone that's laughing, so it's a very easy kanji to remember. And that's probably one of the few instances where this usually works. But if you were to put a smiley face emoji just as that without a story, without, like, say the kanji didn't look like laugh, say it looked completely different, then you would probably struggle quite hard with trying to associate the two together. What I would just do instead is maybe use use an emoji, use a picture or something to sort of trigger a story that I've made about the kanji. And I don't know if you're using RTK or not. If you're using RTK, then what you would normally do is you would take each part of the kanji and make a story with that. And so, yeah, you need to just sort of make it a bit more than just using a picture or something that you've got from something else. When it comes from your own imagination, when you've made the story yourself, the ability to remember that becomes much, much more stronger. It is definitely a process where you've got to make the story or the mnemonic yourself. And that's how it gets stuck into long-term memory. So I would definitely have another look at mnemonics online, see if you can get any more tips from other sources. If you're not doing RTK, have a look at RTK and see what they do for RTK for remembering kanji. I'm assuming you kind of are, though, but if you're not, then obviously have a look at how that process is done, because that is probably one of the better ways of doing it. And personally, if I was to try and use mnemonics to remember kanji, and what I used to do actually is, break down the kanji into its parts, so the different pieces that make up the kanji. Each of those parts has a meaning behind it, and then make stories from those parts. And then usually it depends on how you want to do it, but you could also do it through stroke order as well. So you could try and make the story go in stroke order, or go in order from left to right on which part is written, for example. So, you could also do that, which also helps you to remember how to write the kanji. But I think the main thing for when you're making a mnemonic is making it as crazy and wacky as you can. So if you're making a story for to remember a kanji out of its constituent parts, then making things obscure, making things incredibly large, like you've really got to imagine this stuff, right? So when you're thinking of the story, actually imagine all the different things that are taking place. So if you're imagining a giant a giant elephant, like a really giant elephant, like the size of the world, for example, actually not physically, mentally, imagine that, and that will stick a lot more. That sort of process of imagining really crazy, obscure things that you wouldn't normally see in daily life makes the whole process of remembering so much easier, because your brain's not used to that. Your brain's going to remember the weird over the norm, right? That's a normal thing. Like one of the few things that I would do back in the day, and it's not something that happens so much now because I don't wake up in the night as much, but back in the day when I used to have very sleepless nights, I would sometimes wake up and I would sit in bed for half an hour thinking about a whole bunch of stuff, and I would get a really good idea, and then I would always wake up in the morning and I'd be like, damn, I had a really good idea, but I don't remember what it was. So what I started doing is it sounds really stupid. I started getting my desk chair and putting it sideways on my floor, or putting it upside down. And so what that would do is when I would wake up in the morning, that would trigger my memory, because I associated the tipping, putting my chair upside down or whatever, with that moment of remembering that certain idea. So what that meant was I would wake up in the morning and I would remember exactly what the idea I had was during the middle of the night, because something had drastically changed in my room. Something weird had happened in my room. Okay, if that makes sense. Very weird thing to do. It does work though. So, you can take it or leave it. I do remember specifically one day my mum actually woke me up in the morning, and she was like, what the hell are you doing? Why is your chair upside down? And I just went, I tried remembering something. She was like, what? If you're not doing RTK, at least if you don't want to do RTK, fair enough. Have a look at RTK though and see how they use mnemonics to remember kanji. And yeah, I think again the biggest thing is to just make the stories as wacky and crazy as possible, using huge, large objects, weird, obscure things that you wouldn't see in daily life. Just make them as crazy and weird as you possibly can, and you'll find that you'll be able to remember them much more easily. And also the main thing that I will say is try not to use stuff from other people, because you won't be able to remember it as easily. Try to think of all the stories yourself. It'll stick better, and you'll get much more from that, as opposed to trying to associate a kanji with another third-party emoji, for example, or picture or whatever. So yeah, I hope that helps. If it does, let me know. If it doesn't, also let me know, and I'll see if I can help you out further in the comment section. If you guys have your own question, don't forget to leave a comment down on YouTube, or you can use the Google form docs in the description down below if you're listening to the podcast from a different source. If you are interested in supporting the podcast, you can do so by checking out the Patreon, links in the description. And yeah, guys, I hope you found this podcast useful. If you did, as I said, let me know, hit the like button, do all the good stuff. And yeah, guys, thank you very much for listening. I will see you in the next episode.